everybody else is here, well, welcome. So she has phoned me to say she may be late and to start without her. I'll have to try that on another meeting I don't want to go to. Right. Okay, we've got no public questions. Any declarations of interest? I've always wanted to say, yes, I'm really interested. No, okay. Right, we've got to approve the minutes of the meeting on the 15th of January 21 and the 23rd of July 21. So, a long time ago, but here they are.
It's 17th of September.
In the September one, yeah. Right. Here we are. Any comments on any of them? I waded through them last night and I thought I got a problem, but I haven't. I can't add up. So I've been put in my place by our officer over there. Does anybody else want to make any issues about them? Okay, we can accept them as a true record. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Right, next on the agenda. Oh, right, where we are. Okay. Never folded pages up because you can never get them right afterwards. Right. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Minutes. The budget then, page 13 to 18. Are you going to read us through them? I'm looking at you, don't think you're allowed to read them. Oh, sorry, it's Hannah. I completely missed. I actually didn't see you.
That's right. Simon can be there, yeah. Simon, please now. It was worth it just to see Simon's face then.
Yeah, we'll try that one again.
Thank you. So this report is an update on the revenue position for the current financial years for 21-22, and the forecasts are taken as at period 8, which is the 30th of November. As you can see at the moment, that we're forecasting a very slight underspend across the budgets of £1,622, and the full detail of that is within in Appendix A. And you can see that there are no major variances across the budget lines. Table 1 in your report sets out the impact that has on the Mousehold Heath reserve balances. When we factor in that slight underspend that we're seeing forecast at this point in time, with the final instalment of the pension deficit costs, which we've been smoothing over a 10-year period, you can see that the forecast balance on the reserve at the end of this financial year is expected to be £27,921, and that continues to exceed the prudent minimum balance that was set by the committee at £9,800 earlier this year. Just a reminder on the capital side that there aren't any capital schemes included in this year's budget, and we have applied a small amount of interest on that receipt that is still remaining. Thank you.
Thank you. When I was looking forward through it, this is the last year where we will have to pay that money back, isn't it? So we will be all that better off next year, unless somebody decides to take anything off us.
No, not aware of anything else at the minute. This is the final year of that, so after that we won't be needing to draw that down from your reserve balance going forward.
Yes, it's been a long 10 years, but we've got there. Thank you. Any questions? Right. You got any?
About the only comment I'd make is the level of reserves is extremely healthy and very, very nice to see. Yeah.
The only problem with that, I'm always wary, when they see our reserves, it's very likely that they will want to take anything away from us.
So the reserve is set up, it's called an earmarked reserve, so in effect it's been earmarked for purposes in relation to Mousehold Heath, so it won't be taken away in that respect. Obviously it gives you options to consider how you might want to use that going forward, but it's earmarked specifically for Mousehold Heath.
Because it has been a little bit of a struggle paying all that back, but it'd be nice to know the money we get now. Yeah. Thank you. Any more questions? If you don't understand the precept and how we do it or anything like that, don't ask me because I spend money like water. But that's the chap who can tell you. Okay. I know there's some new people who are with us today, so don't worry, we'll take you through it. Okay. Yes, Simon.
Sorry, I just wanted to say on the reserve that it is well above the prudent minimum, but if you recall that has been built up because we would need to draw from the reserve when we're doing pavilion works.
Yeah.
So there is a plan.
I know there's a plan.
Okay.
I'm not doubting, sorry, I'm not doubting you, but hi Sally, thank you.
I'm just there.
You're down there. Right, moving on. Yeah, yeah. We'll just have to vote on this, so all those in favour, please show. Yeah, thank you very much. I screwed my paper. Right, we've got to. Do we technically have to go through and do them? We've done number 5.
So we're on agenda item 6 now, which is page 13, which is your precept.
Don't screw your papers up and put them in your handbag, because then they don't turn over. So, right, over to you. Are you going to take this one? Hannah.
Thank you. So this report now looks forward into 22-23 and is around setting the budget for the Mousehold Heath cost centre and also approving the precept. The first part of the report talks about the balances in the reserve. This is really just mirroring what we've talked about in the previous item, and that forecast balance at the end of this financial year of £27,921. Again, as we've said, that's above the prudent minimum levels, both 9,800 set for this year, and that recalculation for next year, which is just a minor increase, but still well within the reserve levels that you have. The Appendix 1 sets out the proposed budgets for next financial year, and Table 2 breaks down some of the increases that we're seeing between the 2 financial years. The overall increase is just over 10,000 and predominantly relates to inflationary increases, both in regards to salaries and contractual inflation. And the proposed budgets therefore leave a proposed precept for next financial year for 22-23 of £246,082.
Thank you. Any comments? Questions? Yes, thanks, Mike.
With the utility price increase, I mean, I don't suppose there's much used in the way of electricity or whatever on the Heath, but does that cover the latest sort of debacle nationally concerning energy price rises?
We have increased the sort of the inflationary uplift on that to account for the fact of the sort of the overall increases we're seeing nationwide. It is a sort of a moving feast, and we'll see how that progresses as we go into next year, and keep a close eye on all of these budgets, particularly ones around inflation, given the uncertainty going forward. On the paper, on page 16, we can increase or decrease the level of balances in the level of the risk environment. Do you recommend any of that to be done? No, at this stage, I think given your reserves and the proposals that Simon's already highlighted how that might be used going forwards, I wouldn't suggest any amendments to those.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Right, let's vote again. Right, all those in favour, please show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Right. next item. Right here, management update. Thank you, Hannah. Yes.
Okay, so the next report is item 7, the management update for the period 31st of August.
Can you put the mic a bit nearer to you? I think we're
To the
yes, that's better. Yeah.
to the 14th of January. Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
So again, as I usually do, rather than go through line by line, I shall just pick out a few key paragraphs. So at paragraph 2, the tree safety inspection, I know there's concerns on occasion from Conservators about the risk carried by trees, so this is a reassurance that the wardens have done their second 6-monthly tree safety survey, which the outcomes of that are explained. A lot of the work is done by the wardens or with assistance from volunteers, and anything specialised goes to NCSL to complete, which is highlighting that because you pay towards that tree contract. And also, one of the major areas of risk is Gurney Road due to the level of traffic flows, and also the trees on the verge that within 40 distance of the highway. So that's been assessed, and tree works are identified along there by one of our qualified art officers, and work was specified by them, and that's been completed by the NCSL tree team to manage the risk there. The paragraph 5, the concession Britannia Road. So we were in a situation earlier in the year where we were forecasting some additional income, and then the concession packed up. Unfortunately, the wardens have been able to find a new concession and get that in place, and that's reflected in the forecast outturn for the end of the year of some additional income against that budget line. So that's good news. Paragraph 6. So I just want to do a bit more detail here. So there was a meeting of the Conservators management subgroup on the 9th of November, and one of the items discussed there was the pavilion. And the aim was to bring a report to this meeting for a decision. Subsequent to that meeting and in a conversation with the wardens, it came to light that MPSN have suggested bringing some works forward from the financial year 22-23 to save on scaffolding costs. Also, so in terms of writing the report, also based on the increase in the estimates within the condition survey, that was the 25-year works plan, and things coming in more expensive, I want a review of that 25-year plan and a reassessment of the estimated costs going forward. So I've requested that from the surveyor, because bringing forward next year's works to now would impact on the prudent minimum level of reserve that is held. So that work, now I'm waiting on the final costs, I'm waiting on an updated cost for the whole of the condition survey to then bring a report in March that will actually have the cost of the pavilion works. They'll be delivered in the financial year 22-23 both together, and also I'll bring the implications of any increased costs on our plans going forward, because that may need to follow the precept for the following year if there's not sufficient in the prudent minimum reserve based on the increased costs. I mean, the increased costs we're finding across all the works that we're doing, that as a result of COVID and supply chain issues, we're getting increases anywhere that could be up to almost 40-50%. So I didn't want to bring anything forward today that was actually didn't have accurate information for the Conservators to make an informed decision on it. So that's why there isn't a report on the pavilion at this meeting, on the March one. Also at that meeting, and it's not on the update, which I apologise for, was a discussion around the toilet block and the options, with the hope of bringing a decision on for the Conservators to decide what you would like to do with the toilet block in terms of keeping it closed, just a paint and a tidy up, or changing the layout and a proper refurbishment going forward. Again, I've had no figures provided to me today on the different options, and on that basis I couldn't bring a report that would have sufficient information for you to be able to make an informed decision. So on that basis, so I'm in conversations around that at the minute. On that basis, I plan to bring a report on that to the March committee as well.
Do you want questions as you go along? Or do you want questions as you go along? Or would you
I'll get to the end.
Yeah.
Get to the end. So next I was going to go to paragraph 12 down to 17, which includes, there are a number of things on there to do with flight of pins, graffiti. Just to comment on this, relatively, in the scheme of things and dealing with parks and spaces across the city, it's relatively low, low level, and there's no concerns jumping out from that for me. You can see that 16, the overnight parking sign at Britannia Road, that's been replaced just to prevent any future issues with the wardens we'll have to deal with. If we go to paragraph 22, so this is biodiversity objective, bless you, to the biodiversity objective, there are a number of projects there. There are only a few lines for each explaining what they are and what's taking place on the site, and it does reflect the amount of the intensity of the labour required both from the wardens and from the volunteers. So that's a large part of the autumn and winter work programme. So it's good to see that work's been happening. Moving down to 28, so the one around the objective around improving awareness, knowledge and understanding. Again, there are activities that have involved children in education. There are activities that have improved people's understanding of the heritage of the site, and also the wildlife. So that's good to see. And then it's not post-COVID because we're still in it, but post the major restrictions in COVID, when we had to stop volunteer groups and things across all activities on the council. One of the things is, how is that going to come back? Will it be the same? And you can see from the level of volunteer hours contributed. This is only for the Heath, but again across all the volunteer groups, that through keeping engaged with people, we've managed to quite quickly get back to normal tasks and build up the hours. The hours again contributed by groups, which is very positive. I've had a conversation with NCSL just to update you on this, which is subsequent to when the wardens were drafting this report. If you remember, they came to see the Conservators in March 2020, when it was just before NCSL was being launched, and it was discussed at that meeting. The wardens asked that they come back to provide a future update, which I think at the time was based around this meeting. However, I've had a conversation with NCSL, and they will come to the March meeting because they're almost at their first year end then. And I've asked that could they come and update the Conservators on the things that have changed, any improvements or issues specifically linked to the services they deliver on the Heath. And then secondly, in March they will be on the cusp of MPSN coming back in and NNB, sorry I shouldn't use acronyms, but I don't know what it exactly means. It's the building side, the practical building side, who deliver the practical works for MPS Norwich. They'll be coming back in April, and the MD, who's the MD of NCSL, will be coming in March to update on the ground contract side, the environmental services, will then be able to give you an update on where that service is, because obviously they deliver services for the Conservators around the pavilion and any of the works on the Heath. So I thought it was a more beneficial time for use of their time and where we are at with things to come to the March meeting and take any questions there. I've asked, because I think Hannah's going to be pretty busy towards the end of March, but initially it would seem that Hannah will come and can give an overview from an MD and the MPS N side, and Helen Lambert, the operational director, is the person that will be able to talk about what's been delivered on the Heath and improvements.
With the removal of diseased trees, I'm not a horticulturist or whatever, so I don't really know, but do they have to be careful about removing all of the diseased parts and taking them away so that infection isn't left to attack other nearby trees or along the route that the stuff was removed from the heath?
They get slightly outside the realms of my expertise, but the work that they will have done will be around, there may be fungi on the base of the tree that it's generally related to not specific disease, but there could be internal rot through age, or there could be a pocket in where a limb joins a tree that holds water and it rots and decays and weakens a limb joint. So there could be various reasons, and there will have been different bits of work. So in some cases, our preferred option is not to remove a tree, is to reduce it back and leave the reduced timber on site, as it will have insects and things in it, especially if it's decaying or dying, to leave it next to the trees so those insects aren't taken away from the site. And a worst case scenario, if there is a tree and the issue is some basal rot, and it's near the road, then in that situation it would be a fell, but the specification would be to leave it in lengths near to the base of the tree. If a disease, what we see day to day in tree works across the city on diseases that, so it's not like to say, Japanese knotweed, if you're going to remove it, you've got to be really stringent about where that goes and how it's disposed of because of the implications. These are what can I say, it's probably not the right word, but like routine decay diseases that don't need any specialist treatment for the removal of waste horizons.
Any more questions?
Simon, at the last meeting, it was also suggested that we bring the painting of the bandstand to this meeting for discussion. Has that now been delayed?
I've probably must have missed that in the minutes, if I'm honest. What I'll do is we'll pick that up at the March one as well, if that was, if members want, if that is what was agreed, then I'll do that. Or if you want to agree, I'll do that.
Yes, we had quite a discussion about it, and I think we should do. Out of interest, if anybody wants to have a look, Claire has brought in a book of photographs where we built the bandstand. And anybody know what date it was? I was surprised. Have you got any guesses? It's only 1992. So I was quite surprised about that. Do you know if was there anything there before? No. Although it might seem a long time to other people, but it doesn't to me. So, yeah. Hello, Councillor Chapman. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Dr. Chapman.
I've had some inquiries, people asking about the toilets. So I was just wondering so we're going to get a report in March. I understood that. What sort of timeline are we looking at there, just so I've got something I can report back?
So.
It'll depend on the decision made at that meeting, because a leave closed is as quick, a minor refurbishment and tidy up is easier. Any changes around the layout and an improvement, which some may well view that they need, will take more time. So it depends. At this point, I couldn't say. It would depend on the decision that's made at that meeting, and we can include that in the report, the timescales, estimate timescales for each of the options.
Okay, thank you.
On that point, if we are going to put that on the agenda for the next meeting, any thoughts that anybody might have, would you get it to us, and then we can make sure that we take it into consideration. I've been talking to Julie, if you don't mind me mentioning it, and she brought up a lot of things that I hadn't thought about for catering for disabled people. So if you can all bring your expertise to that meeting, then we can perhaps hammer out what we need to do.
What I would ask,
Yeah.
the meetings towards the end of March, so we'll be writing the reports around, officers will be they'll start on writing them early March for us to fit the timescale to get them through, published and then through committee. In terms of costings, the discussion around at the subgroup was the third option around changes was based, what the officers left with was based around altering the layout. If you were to compare it to some of the major parks, it's a low level of use. And what we've got at Erlen now is a accessible facility and non-gender specific. So one of the discussions one of the options that came out of the management subgroup was on a non-gender specific, an accessible toilet, and there'd be some storage for the cleaning materials and things like that. So that's on the basis that we're now going away to get some estimated costs. If people have views on anything else, we'll need them quickly to consider it for a March report together, because I can't bring a report and give you options if I haven't got an estimated cost for an option. So if you want consideration wider than that, then I would need, I could do email me by the end of next week, and we'll add it into the mix. But the minute the wardens have gone off getting costings on the three options, but one of them there's no minimum cost.
Yeah, I think it would be most useful for us if we get any ideas you've got, and then we can put it before the next meeting. Okay? Thank you. Any more questions? No? Well, the next item.
Sorry.
Oh, Mr. Chapman.
I just wanted to ask in relation to the pavilion. You were talking about bringing forward work from next year's budget to this year. I just wanted to get some clarity on that. Well, how will that affect our costings and our budget moving forward?
I thought you'd explained that.
I didn't quite, sorry, maybe that's me being missing something.
The price, so there's two pieces of work to do with the roof based on the life expectancy of the roof. And an option that the ward was in discussion with MPS, what came forward was you could bring forward the second part of the roofing to make a saving on the erection and removal of scaffolding for a second job at a later date. So that was what the suggestion was, but the estimated cost of those added together, coming out of this year's budget, would put the prudent minimum reserve at risk. Based on that, I need to get some reassurance, some extra confidence in the other estimates within the programme, which I'm going to do to bring forward to March to get the whole picture. I also want Will at that meeting with this, it's a new survey, it's very, very good. We'll also be getting him to just look at the time spans and see whether there's any revision on those, because, you know, as it stands at the moment, based on the current estimates, it is tight to deliver. And that's why it's important to get this work done, A, to aid your decision making, but also for the precept setting next year.
Anybody else? Can we, are you happy with what we asked you to do? Anything else? Can't we find anything else for you? Because I know you're not busy.
If when you say it and ask it, I wasn't happy, I would let you know at the time. I'll accept what comes in the minutes now.
Yeah, what I've taken is there's 3 options for the toilets, unless you hear anything by the end, by Friday, that's what we're going with.
Yeah, so if anybody's got any ideas for the toilets? Yeah. I take it, has everybody seen the toilets up there?
Not personally.
No,
We'll leave
well,
that for a nice summertime outing.
yeah, no, I mean, they're not in good order. I mean, the women's one is the worst. But we could do something really good with it, and because we've got nothing for disabled people, and we are looking at that. Okay, I'll make that.
Yeah, just what I'm doing when to help when we the report in March, we'll take some photographs of existing. John's laughing. We'll take some photographs of existing, and there'll be an itinerary again towards the end of the summer, so we can put that on the visit as well if you really want to see it.
I'm really
Yeah, this is the
that would be so excited if we had an itinerary.
Is everyone happy to know the report?
Yes, we just need to know. Do we first?
Just everyone's happy.
Yeah. Is everybody happy with that report? Was anything else you want to know? Let's know. Right. Okay. So we're on 7 on it.
We're on 8 now.
8. Yeah. We did vote people into the management sub group, but we forgot to record it. So what we have to do is to vote on the people who were voted on. So there is hands up. And it's a straightforward.
Shall I read it?
Yeah. Have you got the?
So, at the moment, you've resolved to. Can you tell me
Yeah.
that? You've got Councillor Maxwell.
Can you hear me? You've got Councillor Maxwell, Chair, Sands, Vice Chair, Julie BC, Councillor Champion, Claire Cohen and John Trevelyan.
Are we okay with all that? Could we have a vote, please?
That's unanimous, lovely.
Is there any other business?
Claire, can you have your points today? Claire, you had an email, so you have all your points you want to raise.
It was the 2 things, Simon covered both of them. The painting of the bandstand and the toilets, so he's covered both of them. While we are on any other business, I have had some communication from people worried about Mousehold and McDonald's. There's a new McDonald's proposed for Mousehold Lane. So just to keep you informed, what we're doing is telling people if they've got objections to complete the online form, and then if it goes to planning, then it will probably come to us as well because we border on to Mousehold and we can go on from there. But it's a bit of a storm in a teacup type of thing. I assume everybody knows about the proposal.
My mic's playing up. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I've got flashing lights. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't work out where it is with the McDonald's.
It's the Marks and Spencer shop, the Marks and Spencer garage,
yeah.
and then there's a lot next door which is going to be emptied out.
So it's right at the top of the...
Yeah.
And it's on the main road.
On the main road, yeah.
So it'll be backing onto the Heath.
Yes, it will. It'll be back onto Mousehold Lane, yeah. But there is a very good survey online, and they go into all ramifications that they've probably thought of. It's still at this stage asking people for their opinion. It's not gone to planning. But something that did actually occur to me, and I it's probably way too soon, but I was wondering whether, if it does get to planning and we are involved, can we ask them to provide a couple of litter bins as a goodwill gesture? Because we're going to need them.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Facetious.
Sure, I think it's going to explode. There's no fence going in, from what you understand.
There are fences, yes.
Is it?
Yeah, there are, it's to block Mousehold off from the site, and also there are some noise abatement fences going in along Playford Road.
Well, what we'll do, we'll get together and we'll get some more information and bring it to the next meeting. If you're local, so if you get anything through the door, you can let us have it. Yeah. You've got something, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, good. We'll have a look at that after this. Yeah. Right. Councillor Kendrick. Paul.
Yeah, that's me. I am at a meeting with my fellow Kent Road councillors, Councillor Harris and Councillor Stannard, with representatives from McDonald, so I should certainly ask about the question of litter bins, because I think that would be a very pertinent question. We are in the public consultation phase of this planning application, so we are still somewhere away from it being determined by the planning committee.
Thank you. So,
yeah, if you go down to Longwater, where they've got a number of eateries, including McDonald's, in the evening, sometimes during the daytime, what you do notice is a great number of rats running around. So I'd want some kind of vermin report as well. Rats galore. Don't ever buy any takeaway there, guys and ladies, because the place is infested. So as soon as you got your bins, in come the rats. And we're not talking nice rats, you know, like nice ones to see. These are nasty ones. So yeah, I'll ask for a vermin report, personally.
shall we schedule this for the next meeting? Just after the meeting.
No, my suggestion is, I'd like, if it get, once it's out for planning consultation, if anyone picks that up, if they could let me know, because sometimes as landowners, and it's a small part of the wooded boundary, we can get missed. So I would ask if anyone becomes aware of that starting, that can they give me a heads up? And I think at that point, from my perspective and officer time, we would then take it on the merits of what's in the plan application to bring a report to the Conservators then for consideration and decision. Because at the minute we can't influence and there are a lot of unknowns, is my suggestion.
I think there's 6 of us here on the planning committee, but we don't tend to get in advance, do we? But I could have a word with the chief planning officer and ask him to refer it to us. Is that okay? Right.
A lot of these fast food places like McDonald's and others, they have an obligation to sort of go around and patrol their area to sort of pick up litter beyond the actual limits, bounds of the fast food place. Keeping in mind where this is likely to be, people could be taking fast food quite some distance out onto the Heath. So I was wondering if there was some way of encouraging McDonald's to provide an annual donation to Mousehold Conservators to mitigate the effects of this.
I think we're a bit ahead of ourselves now.
I think we are.
It's an interesting concept.
Chair, the issue that it seemed to me, this is proposed, as I understand it, for what's currently a car sales place, which will get occasional people. If you know the site, if you go off the top end of the Heath there, if you're wanting to get to the nearby houses or places on the other side of the road, you have to walk along the pavement there or across the entrance to the car park. If that becomes a drive-in restaurant, then I would have thought there's going to be a lot more traffic. I mean, just whether that is going to make it more difficult for people to get to and from the Heath on foot, would I think be the issue, as well as any direct impact on the Heath, on the boundary. There's the issue of whether there's going to be sort of increased vehicular traffic across where people walk to get to and from the Heath.
Because the crossing is much further up, isn't it? The pedestrian crossing.
Like the opposite.
No.
I'm just mindful at the moment, we don't know what's in front of us, and then we have got people who come, so let's wait until we can see what it is and then have a conversation later. At the moment, it's just speculation, isn't it?
But yeah, okay, so if we get any more information, I wouldn't mind having a look at your leaflet, if you don't mind. Yeah. Right, Judith.
Can I just say that I had an email in my inbox. Have others had that?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yep.
I can send you that.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
You haven't had it?
No.
It came from Sprowston, was it the parish council?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we've had some details of it, but I'll forward that to
would
you.
you? Thank you. Yeah.
Just to get to sign.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any more? Any more? Okay. Thank you for attending. Yeah.
Sorry, I've had some reports of drug dealing going on Gilman Road, inside in the Heath itself, and I was just wondering if the wardens of the Heath, if there's what sort of communication there is between the police and the wardens in relation to dealing with issues. Is that pertinent to this?
Well, can I suggest you take that outside of this meeting, because there is a routine for
Okay.
reporting things and there's a mechanism online. And we can go through that some of the
Okay, no, my apologies.
The wardens do have a lot to do with it, and they cover everything.
But there are some online forms as well.
Yeah, that you can fill in. Okay, thank you. Any more? Well, thanks for attending. The next meeting is the 15th of March.